What up? It's your boy Geronimo, and we're back again with another video. So I'm here today. We let the dust settle after the Switch 2 reveal last week, as of course I made a video of my impressions of the reveal and my thoughts overall. The interesting thing though, I'm seeing from certain gaming outlets, they seem to be drawing a line in the sand on how they came out of that reveal. Some are looking and saying, yeah, the Switch 2 is, a stronger, more capable, improved Switch console, which is what most of us want. And then some others felt a bit deflated, maybe disappointed, possibly bewildered, due to it just being bland or not having the immediate hook scream out to us like other Nintendo reveals have done in the past. Now, before I give my thought on this, I'd like to kind of go through some of the articles that have kind of given their pieces on things and want to kind of just give my little commentary here and there. So first we have GameSpot. They kind of came out of it on the more negative side of things. They viewed it as cold and lifeless compared to the original Switch. They think the reveal comes across as overly corporate, bland, and lacking a basic sense of joy that should accompany the introduction of a brand new video game system. Now, I believe this reveal wanted to get one point across, and it was just to showcase what the new Switch would be. It's just Switch 2. It's a sequel system. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I think they're doing a two-part, a tiered reveal and rollout of the system, and the game's coming to it and its unique features, which we did see bits of brief hints of it within the trailer, such as of course the Joy-Cons gliding on a surface similar to a computer mouse, which is exciting in itself given what implementations can be given from there. GameSpot also said they're thinking that has Nintendo given up on expanding the video game user base? The video implies that to them. Nothing about Switch 2 looks revolutionary or particularly refreshing. Instead, this is more the same. Now, when you look at it on the surface, yeah, that's kind of, that take isn't too crazy to me. But I wouldn't say it would be more the same. We didn't really get a full blowout information on the system. It's essentially a different version of how they decided to officially reveal the first Nintendo Switch back in October 2016. And we'll get to that, actually talking more about it in a bit. So GameSpot article was a bit interesting to me because they felt like, compared to the 2016 reveal, it should have been more bombastic. It felt really corporate. There was no dramatized people on rooftop parties or playing the most scripted basketball pickup game of all time, or anything like that, or the completely fake but idealistic Splatoon tournament in a big stadium, reminiscent of League of Legends overseas. And I think they didn't really have to do that this time. The Switch was coming off of the Wii U. Essentially, for those that don't remember or may not have been aware of how Nintendo's home console business was going, the Wii U was pretty much a commercial failure. Outside of its initial holiday of about 3 million sales back in 2012, from 2013 onward to the Switch's release, when they ultimately discontinued producing the machine, it only gathered just over 10 million more consoles during that time. And that's not very good. They essentially sandbagged most of 2016 with a few notable releases, such as Paper Mario Color Splash and Star Fox Zero, though the former was a moderate positive reception compared to its previous on the 3DS, and the latter of Star Fox Zero really just was a mixed bag overall. A retread of familiar Star Fox 64 gameplay and story beats, but with these different gameplay mechanics that, while on the surface did seem pretty interesting, but it was a bit cumbersome to learn, and the learning curve of just kind of making it a one-to-one type of experience with looking at the gamepad screen and the TV, that that was hard for some. It was hard for me. It took me about 10-12 hours up until the end to really get a grasp on that. But we're not going to talk too much about Wii U. I just wanted to give a comparison. So they had to be really different with their reveal of the Switch in 2016. They wanted to really showcase that, you know, this is a brand new concept, a brand new product, the next type of gaming handheld. And the next type is a hybrid. You take it out to go, but when you come home, you can dock it and it blows up on your TV, usually with a higher resolution or potentially a better frame rate, and you get a home console type experience. So with the Switch 2 reveal, this time being more of a, you know, showing like the Switch is transforming, it's evolving, it's growing into the successor device, which is a bigger, sleeker, more mature in some aspects device. So with GameStops, I kind of looked at that, and maybe they weren't aware of other times Nintendo has done this with their consoles, such as like the original Nintendo Entertainment System or the NES to the Super NES. Super NES was pretty much just a stronger version of that console, and granted that was, you know, in the early 90s, so we were still just getting into the 16-bit gameplay. But from that console, everybody knows it's a legendary console and gets compared to the current Switch to this day of its library and its lifespan and how many classic, iconic experiences you can get there. So I think not considering that is a bit odd, saying that Nintendo doesn't necessarily need to showcase, you know, all the gimmicks, all the features in a first initial video. We gotta let people kind of digest it. It exists, and we'll be getting more on April 2nd. They also have done the same with like the Game Boy to the Game Boy Advance, which I mean essentially was just the advanced Game Boy, full color, you know, it pretty much became like a Super Nintendo port device in some aspects. We saw a lot of those games like the 2D Marios, remake of the first Metroid, you know, their own 2D Zeldas. You know, we got, you know, that it was just a better version of the Game Boy. Similar thing with the DS and the 3DS. The main gimmick of the 3DS was, you know, stereoscopic 3D, which initially was kind of, I don't want to say half-baked, but not fully realized, where you had to have your screen fixed on the viewpoint, and it would break pretty easily. But of course, they greatly improved and fixed that with the new Nintendo 3DS revision later on. But again, that's just kind of how I feel about GameStop's talking about this device. Now, on the other hand, we have CBR, which I think is comic book. I think that's what they shorthanded themselves now. They had a similar kind of sentiment as GameSpot, where they felt like their title, Nintendo Switch 2 reveal, undid 9 years of excitement in under 3 minutes. What? 9 years of excitement? Bro, where are you getting that at? No shade to the writer of this article. I don't know where they get 9 years of excitement. Are they one of the ones that on day one of the Switch releasing, they just were like, where's the Switch Pro? Like, they weren't even talking about the games coming out or anything like that. That's what it sounds like to me. And those people, they are a minority, especially online enthusiast gaming circles, who just, instead of enjoying what's, you know, current and now, they're just constantly forecasting and speculating on what's next. You know, it's like people who get excited for the Super Smash Brothers cycle of, oh, what character is going to get in? But when the game comes out, they might play a little bit, but then they go on and do something else. So it's like people enjoy the thrill of what could it be instead of the what is it now that I can tangibly, you know, pick up and enjoy. But yes, CBR or comic book, some other things that they've mentioned is, given all the hype, the Switch 2 reveal should have been one of the most exciting gaming moments in recent years. Instead, it just feels like more of Nintendo being Nintendo. After 7 months of waiting, fans received a 2-minute, 20-second trailer showcasing the model of the Switch 2, but that's it. No hardware specifications or even a hint at how much stronger this new hardware could be. Now that is true. We didn't really get a true big, wow, this game looks crazy and massive, and this looks like a clear jump. But I have to also counterpoint and say, are we discounting the new Mario Kart gameplay? Like, the game they doubled the amount of characters you can race on. We haven't seen a jump since the Wii, Mario Kart Wii, and that was just a slightly souped up GameCube spec wise. So even then, it wasn't more so like, wow, this system can handle 12. It was more like, oh, they went there and they're trying to, grow the Mario Kart experience. So yeah, we see that clearly the game is going for a larger, at least from the preview, a larger, more expansive track. 24 racers at one time. The art style is reminiscent of Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But if you look at the finer details of how the characters animate in a short time, how the models are pretty much different. They seem to be almost going for like that mid-late 90s Mario Kart 64 aesthetic, with some of the renders being more rounded and chubbier. Or I don't know, I'm a Nintendo 64 kid, so that stuck out to me immediately. And of course we had Donkey Kong's new design, but that has nothing to do with hardware. That's just purely an artistic design choice. Also, what Comic Book said, they say that they admit that it may seem unfair to compare the reveals of both the Switch 1 and the Switch 2. But, I mean, yeah, I agree. Like, I don't think it's really fair to do so. Like, they clearly have two different approaches of how they're going about this reveal as far as what they want to give us. And you also have to understand that the leadership is different. Furukawa didn't become president until I think roughly 2 years after the system launched, maybe in 2019. But yeah, they're going for, a more Apple approach of how they want to showcase the next device as far as just a brief glimpse with looks. So I think it's a bit short-sighted to just say, oh no, we don't have anything, we're not getting anything new. Nintendo clearly stated at the end of the trailer that the blowout is going to be April 2nd. You're going to hear me repeat that over and over in this video potentially, but I do apologize in advance. But yeah, so we switched gears to VG247 or 247. They were a bit more positive on the reveal. Some of their excerpts essentially say, the truth is Nintendo hasn't always been one to take those big swings. In fact, Nintendo has done this sort of sequel-based hardware a lot. When they go on to mention essentially what I just said, the NES to Super NES, Game Boy to Game Boy Advance, and the DS to the 3DS. So they kind of understand that this was just a brief showing. This was never clearly meant to be the main thing. That's why they kind of dropped it as a shadow drop. Well, they probably also did a shadow drop as, since the rumors did kind of balloon in some circles online, even with the CES and that Genki accessory company kind of bringing their own 3D mock-up, which they initially said was that they had a real Switch, which is they kind of stuffed in their own toes with that one. They should have kept their mouths shut, but that's just my commentary on how they displayed their device, the mock-up device, I should say, with the Joy-Cons. But VG247 also said, they clearly said what both GameSpot and Comic Book failed to mention, which I think should be obvious if you have two eyes and you actually watch the video. The Switch 2 will have new features. The deliberately vague trailer has hints at this, the Joy-Cons dragging along the surface like mice, which immediately conjures up thoughts of Mario Paint, or Mario Maker, or an Xbox collab for an Age of Empires port. I think that last part might have been, what they personally wanted. Which, hey, look, that could make it to where more PC-focused games can grow on a home console device. I think we can't discredit that as far as the Joy-Con mouse, or as I like to still affectionately call it, the MouseCon feature. But yes, and then of course what they also said in the end is that it's all too soon to judge. We can absolutely entertain the argument that this was a poorly conceived reveal. If your machine looks near identical to its predecessor, perhaps your first trailer shouldn't solely focus on its looks. But in the end, if I trust any company to pull a rabbit out of the hat, it's Nintendo. The hardware is samey, it's true, but we truly have been here before. And in each less gimmick generation, Nintendo has continued to, quote, upend the tea table, unquote. So yeah, I do agree with that as well. I believe Nintendo will continue to innovate, especially from a software aspect. They're just getting more smart with how they innovate, really. While the hardware innovations, have been big swings or big misses, such as the Wii and then its follow-up Wii U as far as commercial success. But we've seen the Switch generation alone, to me, some of Nintendo's best games, like, in their entire livelihood of making games. Like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, that just completely blew up the Zelda fandom and player base. Mario Odyssey is arguably the best 3D Mario as far as open-ended, collecting all the moons and utilizing all the different abilities and mechanics with Cappy. That's just great, And of course we have other things like Ring Fit Adventure. They're pretty successful but often less talked about fitness-based RPG game, which really picked up steam during the pandemic as well. And I have one too, though I should use it a bit more often. But it is very good for at-home exercising. So let's go over to Eurogamer, who is, again, they're surprisingly this writer, this journalist, I suppose, they seem to be a bit down, but for some slightly different reasons. They also feel that the reveal should have had, something that made it jump out and showcase immediately what its new unique pull or gimmick is. They say, generation after generation, Nintendo surprised us with new ideas, even when the ideas themselves seem slight. The DS to 3DS wasn't much of a jump, but do you remember using that 3D slider for the first time? Magic, or well, maybe a headache. Wii U to Switch, a concept nailed. Switch to Switch 2, huh? And again, still too early to tell with these certain things. I mean, I'm not even trying to delve too deep into what has been rumored that can be the pull of this device, because we do have some ideas. And it's less so on the, unique mechanic or gimmick wise, but it's more so how the machine can keep up and bring more demanding games to the system and still potentially be a looker and perform well. This Eurogamer also says that it reminds me of Apple, but now I don't feel any excitement watching Apple. It's just similar looking iPhone after similar looking iPhone. It's predictable. That is true, and a worthy criticism for Apple and how they showcase their new thing. Though I will say, early on in the Switch's life, or actually right when it was about to release, when it was just codename NX, there were talks from Nintendo themselves, and I believe the late Satoru Iwata, the former president, rest in peace, his vision for the NX was to be a long-term system that would have a family of devices. So to me, that always read not so much as just, we have our base Switch, we have our Switch Lite, which is basically just a handheld focus one with no ability to dock, and more so geared to, younger audiences or children. And of course, the revision that improved just about everything hardware and build-wise, the Switch OLED, including that nice OLED display and screen. I also saw it as they will continue with this device as the years go on. And they've also mentioned this in some of their investor meetings. They have slides, which, I mean, that's not really something most common people are going to look at, or even, folks that are just hyper mainstream and just play the Marios and Zeldas and Pokemon. But they have talked about it for at least the past 3 years, or maybe more, possibly 4 years, and said that, their projected forecast for the future would be a successor device. So it was going to be another Switch to begin with. So that detail has been known and been publicly available. I just believe some aren't too up to date on it, but that's why I'm here, to let you know. Now, IGN, they were surprisingly a bit more positive. Not saying I expect IGN to doom and gloom at all times, but I kind of expected one of the writers to come out and kind of be like, like Eurogamer or GameSpot and say, hey man, we didn't see a lot and I want more. But IGN says, as a sequel to Nintendo's most popular console of all time, the company opted to offer a bigger, more powerful version of the system millions of people already own. And this, I think, is for the best. It might not have a gimmick, but maybe for the first time in a long while, there doesn't need to be one. There was something about the Switch that needed a fix. One glaring issue seemingly fixed by the Switch 2, the horsepower. Now, yes, the system is going to be much stronger. We do have some actual direct specs of how it's being improved. We do know that the RAM, as in the memory that the system has capable of, and is 12 gigabytes of RAM. That's 3 times more RAM as the current Switch is 4 gigabytes. And of that Switch, roughly 3 gigs are used for the games itself. That other gig or so is strictly for just OS functions, using the capture screenshot video functionality, things that run in the UI in the background. So 12 gigs is a pretty healthy jump and not too far from how the Steam Deck's memory is as well. So it's a device that should be comparable, if not better than that, once it's all said and done. But yes, I do agree. As the Switch gen has gone on, the current Switch is using a mostly off-the-shelf NVIDIA Tegra X1 processor, which in 2017 was probably one of the best chips you could use for a mobile processor in this hybrid form factor. But as it was more off the shelf and not customized exactly for the hybrid's feature set, as time went on, it did become, more apparent that it was, lower spec, and for more demanding games coming out on it, even from Nintendo themselves, we would see some frame drops. The dynamic resolution would be a bit more aggressive, meaning when you're playing the game, the image quality would get a little blurrier depending on what's going on screen. How active and busy things are getting while playing the game. So that in itself, the extra, the higher specs with the horsepower, absolutely needed for sure. Another thing IGN said was, but if Nintendo faces a choice between innovating with yet another new hardware model or improving its existing one, the answer is clear. The Switch has obvious technical shortcomings that the Switch 2 plainly addresses. Meanwhile, experimental tech in 2025 seems to have hit a wall, as seen by the stagnant AR, or augmented reality, and VR hardware space, something Nintendo briefly experimented with themselves with Nintendo Labo to mixed results. Ultimately, the big new hook of the Switch 2 is that for the first time since maybe the Super Nintendo, the company has decided the best course of action to maintain its level of creativity is to play it safe and simply just release a more powerful console. Yes. Yeah, that's basically what this is. We're getting this current day and age version of the NES to SNES jump, which is personally what I've wanted a lot too. I'm not saying I don't want Nintendo to innovate at all from the software aspect or even some parts of the hardware, which most of that is going to the Joy-Con. But yes, I wanted to see a more iterative jump. Just a beefier console, improve some of its shortcomings. As we saw in the reveal, the Joy-Cons are magnetically attached, which I believe is just an objectively improved way to attach them to the device and keep it as one full handheld system. Whereas when the Switch first launched, there were many people, I especially saw on social media, that were attaching the Joy-Cons backwards on their Switch. Like they were putting it on the rails backwards, and that would, obviously that's not what you're supposed to do, but that will wear out the metal of the railing, so it could, over time, depending on, how rough you are with the system, it could leave the Joy-Cons feeling a little wobbly on the rails since, they're not as tight as they should be, or sturdy. So I think the magnetic change is just a better improvement. It's good, and visually it looks really satisfying. The little clap it does when they attach, that looks great. But yeah, IGN pretty much is just like, this is a safe reveal. We think this is good. We'll get the full blowout on April 2nd yet again. And finally, we have VGC, or Video Games Chronicle. They had a more, I want to say they had a more somewhat more nuanced take where they kind of understood that it was a less inspired type of reveal, but it may be for the best right now. VGC says, ultimately, this is what the fans are asking for. They're not after some mind-bending new way to experience the games they love. Even though the video was uninspiring, I can't help but get a little excited. It's been a slow 18 months for fans of Nintendo. Since the launch of Super Mario Bros. Wonder in 2023, we've mostly just had remasters, spin-offs, alarm clocks, and museums to keep us engaged. So yeah, it has been quite a bit of time since we've had a lot of more meaningful new games. We've either gotten, like he said, ports, remasters, 1 or 2 remakes, and some smaller kind of B, C tier type of games, basically smaller in scope, not necessarily developed by Nintendo's main studios in Kyoto, Japan. So it has been a bit of time, and we have heard from PH Brazil, reporter based out of, you guessed it, Brazil. Well, not just a reporter, but he's a games journalist as well. He was the one that broke the news almost a year ago, in 2024, that there was an internal delay for the system. So initially, we were going to at least get more information on the Switch 2 for a potential fall launch, fall 2024, but looks like we're kind of getting to the middle part of the year for that. But overall, it's interesting to see some of these takes from a lot of the more reputable, well-known gaming outlets here and there. I kind of think that a lot of the negativity, while some of it can be justified if you're just going off of face value of what was presented, I feel like they're just making these articles for clicks. Like, they're making them for clicks. There's a history of gaming journalists being unreasonably negative, or as some people call it, concern trolling about certain decisions Nintendo makes, because they beat to their own. They always run to the beat to their own drum. They do compete in the space actively. People always say, oh, Nintendo doesn't compete directly. Yes, they do. They just have a different strategy with their console design, a different strategy with their software. And as we saw with the Switch, clearly that works. So, but yes, the reveal did the job. It indicated that the Switch is getting a successor to Switch 2. It's bigger, it's sleeker, has a larger screen. We got a glimpse of one game coming, presumably either at launch or near in the launch window, with the new Mario Kart. And yes, the showing, we could have maybe gotten 1 or 2 more games to show, but that's just what Nintendo wanted to do at this point. Maybe they tested internally what games could have the best reception when viewing in this kind of 2.5 minute long format. Maybe they did test it with a souped up version of Metroid Prime 4. Or, as we all kind of are assuming, given how long it's been, the new 3D Mario. But those answers will be supplied to us by April 2nd, 2025. So I think we just need to wait a bit longer. A lot of these, more disappointed articles, they appear short-sighted, or they're not really truly aware of how Nintendo's full game business history has been. Yes, they have pivoted hard from the GameCube to Wii due to just ultimately not being able to compete in the hardware race between the PlayStation 2 and even newcomer the Xbox. So we just have to wait and see more, and I think we'll have a great showing in April. And of course, when we get there, I'll be more than happy to kind of cover what we got there and what's exciting. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to talk about today. Thank you for watching or listening, if this is your little podcast for the day. If you like what we're going on here content-wise, we greatly appreciate you like the video. Leave a comment. What did you think of the reveal? Are you along the lines of like GameSpot and Eurogamer and VGC, where they're not really up on the, they're not really up and positive on the reveal overall, or are you more so like VG247 or even IGN, where they're like, this is fine, this is pretty much what most of us want, we should be good? And of course, also subscribe. We got more videos like this coming. Definitely gonna talk about more Switch 2, more things in gaming. some other videos that are of interest to me that I believe you would find interest as well. So again, thank you for listening or watching. You have a great rest of your day or night, wherever you may be, and peace out.